Okay, so there are two types of log. This assignment says condensing logs. So condensing, what we're trying to do is we're trying to crunch two logs, put them together. And there's two types of questions I can give you. One with two logs, okay, on one side, and no logs on the other side. And the second type of question is when you have three logs, so two on one side and one on the other side. Okay, and there's slightly different ways of doing them. But the condensing part is the same. So that's what we're going to do. What we want to do in this case is we want to crunch these two so we have one log. And then we want to solve for x. So how do you crunch it? Well, if you have a log base 8 here and a log base 8 here, when we crunch it, we're going to end up with log base 8. And so I'm going to just put everything else in brackets. Getting kind of messy here. And then what we have to do is we have to figure out what to do. Now the first log is always going to be on top, and so we have a 6 on top. Now we either, if it's subtracting or adding, if it's subtracting, we end up with a fraction. If it's adding, we end up multiplying. Okay? So if this said plus, I would go 6 times all this stuff. If it's minus, then I just take all that stuff and put it on the bottom, x minus 5. And that's it. This is equal to 1. And now we've crunched these two logs. So log and log, crunched down to log, and there's my answer. Okay? Now, I still need to solve for x, so that's not solve for x. So it's in logarithm form. How do I get x all by itself? Well, I bring it out of logarithm form. And you're really good at that now because we did like 1.5 sheets of that. You start in the basement of a log house and you go over the equal sign twice. So you go whoop, whoop, right? So it'll be 8 to the power of 1 equals everything else. Okay? Now, this is algebra from this point on. It's not logs nor is it exponentials. So let's do a little bit of algebra. The way that I would do this algebra is I would just rewrite this question as 8 over 1 as a fraction, and this as 6 over x minus 5, also a fraction. And we can do the stinky guy rule if you like, or I'm going to, not the stinky guy rule, the L technique, or the stinky guy rule. And I'm going to do the stinky guy rule where you can move any number diagonally if there's an equal sign in between. So the 8 and the x minus 5, I'm going to move the 8 down below there and the x minus 5 up there because I call it the stinky guy rule. I don't like doing math, and so that's not really multiplying, adding, dividing, or so I'm just swapping. So in other words, I have x minus 5 over 1 is equal to 6 over 8. Okay, well, x minus 5, I want x by itself, so I had to bring it to the top. That's why I swapped them. And now I don't care about divide by 1. That doesn't really do anything. So if I just erase the divide by 1, that's the same thing. Now I've got x minus 5 is 6/8. Well, I don't want x minus 5. How do I get rid of a minus 5? I bring it over to the other side. So I have 6/8 there. And when I bring this to the other side, it turns it into a plus 5. And so now x is all by itself, all the numbers on the other side. So now you can merely punch it into the calculator. Once the x is by itself, just punch it in the calculator. 6 divided by 8, enter, plus 5, enter. 5.75, ooh, what is that, math? Enter, enter. 5 3/4, okay? 5 3/4. Now, that's a mixed fraction. If you want it as improper fraction, we can use the alpha y equals down to number 3 function on the calculator, and that's the same thing as 23 over 4. Now, I'm not picky on this particular. If you give me either one, that's fine. That's your answer right there. Okay, the second type is the same. First step 1 is the same thing. What we have to do, so we got logs on both sides. We still have to crunch these two things or condense these two things, and so we got log 9. So the answer is going to be a log 9. And so I'm going to put a bracket here, and what are we doing? Well, this one also happens to be minus, so that means it's a fraction. And the first number always goes on top, so it's x minus 7 is on top. And on the bottom, minuses are on the bottom, pluses are on the top. On the bottom is 4. Okay? And there's the answer there. Now, on the other side, I don't have to crunch it into one log because it's already one log. So I'm going to put log base 9 of 7 there. Now, some people prefer this type of question where there's 3 logs instead of 2, because this particular type of question, I kind of make it fun here, in that because we have a log base 9 on that side and a log base 9 on that side, what I say is the logs roll away. And so that one's gone and that one's gone. Okay, so what am I left with? I'm left with x minus 7 over 4 on the left, and on the right I've got 7 over 1. Okay, so now it's, again, simply algebra. We're done with the logs and the exponent rules, all that stuff, and so we just want x by itself. So I have to get rid of this 7 and I have to get rid of this 4. The easiest thing to get rid of right now is to move diagonally. I'm going to move that 4 diagonally up there using the stinky guy rule. So x minus 7 over 1 is equal to 7, and if I move it up there, it'd be times 4 over 1. So they're both, this one, because the 4 moved out, it's left with a 1, and the 1's still a 1, so I don't have to do that. 7 times 4 is 28. And so x minus 7, this is simply algebra now. X minus 7 is 28. I don't want x minus 7, I just want x. So x by itself, what's the opposite of minus 7? 28. I bring it over the other side. The opposite of minus 7 is plus 7. And so, again, now all the numbers are one side. I can use my calculator if I'm not confident with that. Oh, it's 35. There's my final answer. Nice. X is equal to 35. Okay, so there's 2 steps to this. There's the algebra part, which, you know, we might get stuck on that because if algebra is not our forte. But there's also the log part. And so we're in the log and exponents unit. So this is the step that I want you to get. Do you know how to compress that? So when you compress logs, when you subtract, it's a fraction. When you add, if I were to change this to an add, let me give you one more example that's not on your assignment. If I've got log base 3 of x, and then plus, because we had 2 minuses, and then log base 3 of 6, okay, is equal to log base 3 of 9, just made that one up, random numbers. Well, this case, we still have to compress those things, so it's still going to be a log base 3, and this is going to be one of these nice questions. Why? Because the logs are going to roll away. You got a log there and a log there, but before we do that, we have to compress those. So you take that number, or that letter in this case, and that number, and you plus them, but you don't plus them. You, with logs, you multiply that. So 6, or x times 6, or 6 times x, is 6x. Okay, numbers with numbers, letters with letters. If this were a 5 in front, actually, let's change the question right now. 5, this would be not 5x and 6, will be 5 times 6, which is 30 now. Changing my question, changing my answer. So it'd be 30x. There's only one x, so only one x. If I put another x in there, well, now it's 5 times 6, numbers with numbers, letters with letters, and using the exponent rule, 1x, 2x, so it's x2 in that case. Now, I'm not going to give you that because it's now the algebra gets really hard, so this, I just made these numbers up. But the log here and the log here, whoop, nice, because they get to roll away. They're gone. And so all you're left with in this case is 30x squared is equal to 9, and you solve for x that way. Now this one's really hard to solve now because I kept on changing the question. So now it's an x squared. We're not going to solve for x squares yet, but I think you get the idea. The idea here, and this is a logarithm and exponential assignment. So the idea here, do you know how to compress those things? If you got a log 3 here and a log 3 there, well, the answer is going to have a log 3. If you got logs on both sides, then the logs can roll away. If you don't have logs on both sides, so we got logs on the left, but not on the right, well then after you compress those things, then all you do is you put it into exponential format. So you start a log house where? In the basement, so 8, and then you go over the equal sign twice, and I call it the beep bop, right? 8 to the power boop boop, or boop boop rule, whatever. So 8 to the power of 1 equals everything else. 8 to the power of 1 equals everything else. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense.